are going to have to the game content is going to be unprecedented. Not to mention the things such as the scale of games. We're playing. The Dice team is actually playing the next Battlefield. It is at a scale and size that we have never seen before, and so it is just it's blowing our teams away about what is possible, and it's incredibly exciting. And it's almost as if our imaginations are being unbound relative to where they have been before, thanks to the incredible technology from Phil and Lisa. The teams are really motivated and inspired by it.
Well, and this technology, I know Lisa, I mean, you and your teams are working for years and years with these partners to sort of, think about, what types of features can be in these systems and what's possible. I wanted to get, a little bit perspective from you on, the technologies that are inside of these consoles and PCs today. What do you think what is it going to enable moving forward? You said we know great graphics, great computing power, but the types of experiences, I know you guys think, about the emotion of it too, of what you want to bring to the end user. Maybe give us a bit of perspective from AMD of, what you're hoping the experiences will be that will come out of the technology that you're putting into these machines.
Well, look, we love the fact that we can bring so much technology to so many people. I mean, if you just think, you were commenting, Jeff, just a moment ago that in the last generation of consoles, which was 6 or 7 years ago, if you think about how many people that technology touched, I mean, it was over 500 million, right? If you think about across the entire user base, and this cycle is even going to be larger when you think about consoles, PCs, and the cloud. And what we're able to do is really work so closely with our partners, with Phil's team, with Laura's team, and the other game developers to really create that end-to-end experience. So, I mean, I can talk to you about speeds and feeds all you want, but I mean, I think at the end of the day, it is creating that immersive experience that Laura mentioned, and it's also creating it in a way that you can experience it whichever way you want, sort of wherever you want, with whomever you want, in different ways, shapes, and forms. And I think that's what we really strive to. It's empowering to know that you can have sort of this technology really flow through the entire ecosystem, and that's been sort of the vision of our development.
Yeah, Phil, when you sit down with Lisa and her team and your team, think about the next generation and the types of experiences. Obviously, I know part of the vision, as Lisa said, is being able to sort of scale things across multiple devices and platforms to allow the widest possible audience to experience these games. But how much do you really think about like the big ideas and how technology can enable that for this next generation? I mean, something like faster load times is a quality of life improvement, but some of those kind of bigger vision things about the worlds and the characters and those experiences, how do you go about even sort of manifesting that into a chip?
One of the cool things that people don't see, I think about Lisa and Laura's team. Like, we start this journey with them probably 4 years ago, where we go and talk to Lisa and her team. It's an incredible team at AMD, about the technologies they see on the horizon and how they envision these things might impact video games and the distribution of games. And then we spend that same time with the game studios and Laura's team and other third-party publishers and studios and our own internal teams, talking to them about what they can envision. And it's this long process, which I think is really just a cool part of the creation of a platform, of getting to spend time with the hardware engineers and the magicians that are there in Lisa's team, and also starting to hear from creators. And creators usually talk about the way they want their customers, gamers, to feel. Right? They'll start from here's what I want somebody to be able to experience in my video game. They rarely start with kind of a resolution or frame rate or even load times. Like, they'll start from an immersion or an impact that they want to have on their players. And it's just an incredible time when you're at that beginning of a platform and you're iterating these ideas. And I like to say it's like throwing this lawn dart 4 years in advance and hoping that you hit a target, because you don't really know where it's going to land. You don't know what the technologies that will come to bear, and some of them that won't. and how the platform and the experiences really come together. And that's what's so exciting to me about the beginning of a generation, because you're starting to see creators get their hands on the platforms, whether it's the new PlayStation, the new Xbox, and really start to push their ideas in what they want to push forward. But I thought the thing that Lisa was talking about of the thing about accessibility to games and how the gaming is now built around me as the player, it's a goal I think we should all have as an industry, that it should be as easy to play a video game as it is listen to a song or watch a video. And I think that's a real opportunity for all of us. There's a lot of friction in video games that we're used to, whether it's downloading 100 gigabytes of video games, whether it only runs on one piece of hardware, or any of those things. And there's still positives to that part of gaming as well, but it can't be a barrier to people getting to play the great games that Laura's teams are building. And as a platform, that's what we think about, is that intersection of opportunity for creators and technical capability of the platform, to really unlock more people to be able to play. I think that should be our goal.
And I know, we're going to talk a lot about this, I'm sure. You said the changing nature, right, of these traditional console cycles and boxed products that used to go by, and now these games are increasingly these incredible living worlds and ongoing games that continue to build and build. And I wanted to turn to you a little bit, Lisa, on the hardware side and talk about that. And cloud obviously is a part of this, but I'm curious to get your perspective on kind of how hardware may become a little bit more like software. That's something that Gabe Newell talks to me a lot about, is like the idea of, hardware evolving, and with cloud, we've seen, hardware can change behind the scenes, and the game experience just, improves over time. I'm curious to get your take on, the game industry is being disrupted and changing. I'm curious on the hardware side, like, how do you look at that of, sort of, compute and GPU power sort of, changing over time, and how does AMD look at that and the, the changing nature of that in the next decade?
Well, I think the exciting part about it is, gaming is a perfect use case for really driving, high performance compute. And,
Yeah.
Again, back to why is 2020 so unique? Because I think it's really, sort of, really brought out the fact that, tech is essential, right? And if you look at, just, whether you're talking about gaming, you're talking about work from home or school from home, or any of these types of opportunities, you need good hardware, and hardware ends up being the foundation that allows you to build these incredible experiences that with Phil's team, with Laura's team, and with sort of the other third-party developers. And so we actually view ourselves as an enabling and an empowering capability with hardware. And the truth is, it is. You might consume it in all different ways, right? So right now, everybody's dying to get a console. So I'm sure, Phil, it feels great to be the hottest product on the market. But there are also people upgrading PCs like they've never done before, because they want to experience this incredible new capability. And yes, we push the envelope on graphics, and we push the envelope on CPUs, and we work very closely with the software developers to make sure that we can get all of the new features like ray tracing and other capabilities. But it's all to really enable that foundation of people just experiencing what technology can do for you, whether it's for entertainment or for productivity or other use cases.
And this traditional, 6 or 7 year console cycle, we obviously know in the PC space, there's, more iterative upgrades over time. Lisa, how do you think cloud and kind of, some of these, technologies are going to kind of change the cycle of innovation or, hardware? Like, do you have any thoughts on what that's going to look like in the future?
I think we're going to continue to push the envelope, and we'll whether it's delivering more capability in the cloud, as well as in client devices. But the architectural capability is really important, and the ability to play not just the current games,
E
but sort of new
praticamente,
capabilities is very important. And so, we think about that
cioè lei prima stava
with
dicendo
the evolution
chiaramente
of
che
hardware, and
oltre che le
that's
console ci sono le
really
persone
what
che
helps
stanno
us bring all these
incrementando,
things together. So from that
cioè,
standpoint, I think hardware will always continue to
più di
evolve, but I
prima
think the
ci sono
ability to play
persone che
your full suite of games is such a large piece of that, and so
che
that's part of
praticamente
what we're looking at as
continuano
well.
And
a,
on the game
a
side,
fare
Laura,
upgrade su proprio PC
EA
perché vogliono
touches
giocare
almost every
sempre al
genre out
meglio. Però
there
lui ha
in one
chiesto,
way or
ma cosa ne
another.
pensi del cloud?
Maybe tell us a bit about when you think of next generation. You said there's certain, the kind of emotional impact of, a massive immersive world, but also these games are becoming, sort of living spaces, and ongoing, kind of social spaces in many ways, for folks to gather. I know you've been involved over the years in MMOs and other types of games. What are the genres or the types of experiences that you think this new generation is going to bring forward? Like what are the types of games that EA's game creators are most excited to build?
Ah,
Well,
quindi,
the
lei
enablement
lavora per
of the
l'EA?
technology is not just about playing
Oh,
games, it's also about creating in games. It's
e
about
praticamente gli ha
viewing
chiesto
and
le nuove
watching games
generazioni cosa pensa
interactively.
che possano
What's happening before us
aspettarsi
is
o
we're seeing
creare
secular
nuove
changes
generazioni di
around and
giochi.
secular evolution, fundamental changes
E
around
lei
how
dice
people
appunto
interact with
che
each other, how
non
people
pensa tanto che
consume
sarà solo
media
l'aspetto
and
del
entertainment,
giocare ai giochi, ma anche di
and the
creare.
expectation that consumers in general have around having an agency or having an impact on experiences that they engage in. And so I think that what we are seeing and how we're thinking about it, as we move forward into this new generation, is we're thinking about playing, absolutely, people playing together, playing the games that we're creating. We're thinking about how players create, how they create with each other, build on each other's ideas, and then how they
Mm.
watch, in an interactive and social way. And social interaction and how people engage and play with each other is also a really important thread through play, create, and watch, that we think is really unique to gaming. Gaming can be at the center, of this. And we know that gaming is so big now. It's bigger than movies and TV. And with the unlock of the technology innovation that we've been talking about, the runway is significant.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the definition of what is a game. And,
Mm-hmm.
Phil and I will have these debates often about, there's like single player story games. And even at the Game Awards, like, people love a lot of, really rich narrative, but obviously there are many different, genres out there and types of experiences. And Phil, I'd love to get from a platform perspective, your take on sort of the changing nature of what defines a game. As Laura said, obviously Minecraft was a great example of creation
Mm.
being a part of the game experience. Do the genres and types of games in this next generation, are they going to dramatically sort of shift or change? Do you think?
Well, I think to some extent they already have. And I look at the games that are up at the Game Awards, and there's some amazing games from great creators. And then I'll also look at the games that are getting most of the play. And there's another set of creators, and there's some overlap between those two things, but there's another set of creators that have really focused on engagement of communities. And those aren't separate spheres of creation. I think that as a platform, what we want is to give the creators the tools to build the experience that's in their head, and
Quella vuole dare una
enable a
piattaforma per dare la
platform that can
possibilità ai
have
creatori
amazing
di
games
creare
like
quello che hanno nella mente, creare
Assassin's Creed or the new
esperienze.
FIFA or the Cyberpunk launching right now, but
Yep.
also be an amazing platform for something like Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite,
Mm.
and to make sure that the platform's not the thing that's trying to dictate what can become popular, but rather we just give the tools and the canvas for the largest uh, ecosystem that's out there, a large ecosystem for creators, so that they can find the largest audience. I think that the magic that game creators have really grabbed onto, that I think in music and video they haven't quite been there, is, as Laura was talking about, that power of community. The fact that our games, and Jeff, I know you've talked about this a lot, where games are almost a platform unto themselves when they get to a certain scale. And as creators, then we have to think not only about what does that mean to go launch a game and to sell it and make sure people have the right experience with it, but also over time, how do you grow and evolve that platform? And in many ways, building something like Windows or PlayStation or Xbox right now. It's about a platform of platforms, and those gaming platforms that live on top of your platform are have their own sense of community and creation, and you've got business models inside of those platforms, whether it's Roblox or Minecraft and all of those creations that happen there. And it creates both a ton of complexity, but I also think a ton of opportunity of not to define what is one thing that is success for us as an industry. Because with 3 billion people playing video games today, there is not one great game. And yeah, I'll bristle a little bit at Game of the Year, not because I don't think there's some amazing games that were created, but rather to highlight one game in a world of so many amazing uh, things that have been brought to market. I just like celebrating the overall success in gaming, and you've done that with the Game Awards. I think you've done a really good job of bringing more creators at different stages in both their career and scale. But also, when you think about EA and the work they've done to foster small games and bring them to market, and Lisa and the teams at AMD, PC is kind of the ultimate democratized game creation platform, both because of its iteration and openness. I think all of that just builds an amazing future for gaming.
Well, what's so exciting about what you said, Phil, too, is that it's not just about super seasoned, experienced game developers and creators. It's about the community. Players are at the center, actually, of the industry and the experience far more than they have ever been. And it's just going to continue to go in that direction, which is just an incredibly exciting time, not only to be a game developer, but to be game players and game creators. It's so interesting.
And it's, one of the things that I think we're all seeing right now is the success of Among Us, right? A game that launched over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Cool team creating a very cool game, but kind of has found its time now with COVID and other things where it's now providing a service. Not that it didn't have players before, but you've seen it come to the forefront on platforms and on PC really, and other platforms doing really well. And I think it's awesome for us that it is the players, Laura, as you say, that have the power. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
what launched today or what has the biggest marketing campaign or even the highest production budget, but players will find great games wherever they are. And we have the platforms as an industry to enable those games to find players and actually kind of reinflate in certain cases or reach new levels. And I think that's awesome. I'm seeing right now so many people playing Jedi Fallen Order.
Yep.
It's awesome to see people coming back to an amazing game that launched, and now I see new people finding it, and that's just something that our industry should continue to push. People finding the right game for them at the right
Well, I
time.
agree. Because for so long you said there's all this great content, and then it's sort of like,
Te-
2 years later, you don't think about it. You said
Anche
Jedi Fallen Order,
giochi
great game a year
vecchi. Sì,
ago. It's up for awards
perché
tonight
quei
even, and
giochi
it's like, yeah, it's one of those ones that is an incredible
soprattutto
experience and
adesso,
holds
secondo
up
me, sono
incredibly well.
importanti con le nuove piattaforme
Yeah.
permettono di
Yeah.
valorizzare
Lisa, I
giochi
wanted to
che
ask a bit
magari
about the
nella precedente
team there, and we're
generazione
talking a lot
non
about
erano effettivamente
specifics on
valorizzati
games and
benissimo.
experiences. And I'm curious, how does AMD just conceptually, how do you translate some of those
Parallelamente
ideas into
ottimizzazioni
the
non
silicone and
perfette.
the hardware that you guys are making? Like, I'm curious, like, that sort of, you know, dreaming of sort of like where technology and graphics are going to go. Like, what is that process at AMD when you're probably even starting to think about the next generation? Like, how do you guys go about that, and how do how do you translate some of these big thoughts and ideas into the actual technology that's going to bring it to life?
Sta chiedendo adesso
Yeah,
appunto
no,
se aspetta che la
Jeff,
maggiore possa portare
that's always the
in
fun
vita
part,
nella
right?
realtà
So, I mean,
non
you can
adesso, ma
imagine,
con una prossima, ma
you
nella
know, a team of
prossima
architects who sit
generazione.
there and think about, hey, what can technology do in 5 years? It starts with
5
what we
anni.
think the manufacturing is capable of, and then it starts, and a lot of it is frankly the vision of our partners around where are the big rocks that we can move, and then it's putting it into reality. So if you think about just what we're seeing here in 2020, it's really a culmination of the last 4 or 5 years of effort
Cioè,
around
adesso praticamente quello che vediamo
how much
adesso nel 2020 in
processing
realtà è una
horsepower can we
combinazione
put
di
in a little box
processi
and
che
ensure
sono
that
partiti
it
4-5
it
anni
can
fa, che
do all
sono
the
andati
great
avanti in
things
questi
that
anni, che adesso
Laura's
hanno
team and Phil's
portato
team
a
want to do.
risultati.
And so, yeah, the process is very iterative, but it starts with the big vision of what's possible, and then how do we make what's possible a reality. And so,
Secondo me è proprio
It
una
is a
questione solo di
really,
pensare
really unique
cosa è
time when you see it all
possibile
come together. And that's
e
what you're
cosa è
seeing right
anche
now, whether
impossibile adesso
you're a
per
console gamer or a PC
cercare di
gamer
creare
or you're
qualcosa
a
di
cloud
veramente innovativo.
gamer, you're seeing really the culmination of what's possible from a hardware standpoint and bringing in new tech like 7 nanometer technology and RDNA 2 architecture and ray tracing and all of these things coming together. But it's really working very closely with technologists as well as our partners to figure out where the world is going.
And I'm curious for you guys, all of you. It's like there are always trade-offs, right? When you're, building new games and new platforms, new chips. For this next generation, like, is AI going to be the big leap forward? Is it going to be? You said we're talking a lot talking now about ray tracing and new graphic technologies. I'm curious if any three of you have thoughts on sort of like in the next cycle, like where we're going to see the most disruptive opportunity, or maybe it is, as you said, with things working across multiple platforms or the creation engines inside of these games. Like, I'm curious if you guys have thoughts on, out of all the different sort of lanes that teams can pursue, what will be sort of the most disruptive? Is it that the characters are going to be so amazing, or the narratives are going to be more malleable? And again, different teams will approach it in different ways. But I'm curious if you guys have thoughts on sort of the most disruptive elements once we get past the faster load times and some of those other quality life improvements. Any thoughts on like what the big disruption may be in the next 4 or 5 years?
We're all just going to stare at each other.
I was going to say, it's like I got to call. All right, you're up first, Phil.
First,
You think about this stuff, right? And it's like I just wonder, you always talk about more believable characters, or Laura mentioned Battlefield, biggest battles ever, and it's like I'm just trying to think of as gamers try and get excited, I guess, right, about the how games are going to get that much better. Maybe it is just all the levels, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
No, I think it's a great question, and I focus. I'm not picking on you a little bit, but the word disruption maybe is where because I don't see it as disruption. I see it as really unlock and accessibility. I think from a pure technical standpoint, I think one of the areas that we haven't talked a ton about, on disruption, I think about accessibility. I think about how do we make more games more available to more people, and that's really an opportunity. I do think there's some underpinnings in the technology that Lisa and the team have worked on that'll be incredibly important there. And AMD plays a really unique role on PC and on console and cloud. There's really no other silicon provider out there that has the role that they have across the surface area of so many people playing games. So staying in sync with Lisa and the team and sitting down, and we're doing this already, and thinking about what could come, I think will be incredibly important. One of the areas we haven't talked a ton about, just because it's not as on screen today, is I think the machine learning capability of the silicon that Lisa's team is putting out now. And you've seen technology that allows super sampling and recreation of certain fidelity at lower bandwidths and other things that I think are going to be really, really interesting this generation on unlocking, because of the local device capability, bringing a really high fidelity either stream or even local gameplay to a device that's maybe not built to perform at a certain ton of teraflop level. But there's a ton of work that the teams have done thinking about machine learning and how it will impact gaming. But one of the great things is we're always surprised. If I go back to Xbox
Il machine
360
learning
and there's this
potrebbe
little Java game
impattare
called Minecraft and it
i
launches towards
giochi
the end of
quando
the
si va a
generation,
ricavare delle
who would have thought that 10 years
IA
later that thing would be what it is? And that's not
degne
because
di
we own
questo,
it. The
no? Cioè,
community is
effettivamente
the ones that have
migliori
driven Minecraft. So, I think for any of us, we can make some bets about
sarebbe
what
tanto
might be
ancora,
the
non
thing
lo
that
so,
happens. But the cool thing
però
is
finché
that the
sarebbe ancora
community owns the decisions
intelligenza
about what they
artificiale
play and what they
non è
invest
il
in.
massimo.
And our industry does a good job on following what players want.
Yeah,
Anche
I
in
agree.
altri
I
giochi.
think that it's the combination of this incredibly advanced, sophisticated, complicated technology. The combination of that is actually going to bring together an accessibility that is powerful. It's hard to talk about and explain the profound impact that accessibility can have for a player and for a player experience or for a consumer experience, but it will be the most defining, powerful change in gaming will come from the accessibility, whether it be in gameplay, platform proliferation, ubiquity of games. I mean, think about, I was talking to a friend of mine about this. Think about how we thought about iPhones. When my iPhone came out, there were a lot of smartphones on the market. You had your camera, you had an iPod, you had music capability, but the accessibility, the ease of having all these things in one place, then to have these experiences actually talk to each other, interact with each other, is something that we all can't live without and can't imagine our lives without at this point. And I really believe that this is what we are embarking on in this next generation of gaming. The bounds that we have and the barriers and limitations that were on either game developers or game players, or access and friction. Phil, you talked about friction earlier in the conversation. It's hard to underestimate the power of that and the power and the impact that accessibility is going to have on our industry, on gaming for players, and dare I say, society at large.
Yeah, maybe if I just add a comment to that, I think we also underestimate just how different it really is. And a story that I was having a conversation with a person recently, and they were congratulating us on the new technology, and they just said, "Hey, I was in a store, just looking at a 4K monitor and seeing what the new generation of products could do, and it was just completely different." And I think that's really where we're going. I mean, the fact is that the technology that we're putting into um, today's capabilities is different. It's visually stunning. It's incredibly immersive, and it is extremely accessible. All of these comments, and we take for granted the fact that just a few years ago, the experience wasn't like this. And so I think that's what this community is able to put together. I mean, the fact is, gaming is one of those places that you can see and feel the difference when the technology gets better, and I think that's why it's so much fun, and frankly
E
why
dice che praticamente che il
it's growing
videogame
in
gaming
sort of around the world.
sostanzialmente è uno di quei campi in cui puoi
Yeah,
vedere
no.
effettivamente la
You mentioned around the
tecnologia
world. I think one of the things
fare
I'm always amazed
progressi
with Game
con
Awards
nuovi
and this industry is
giochi,
how
con
global
nuove
things
tecnologie, nuovi
truly are.
processori.
And I wanted to talk quickly about accessibility, where we talked a lot about the accessibility of games on more platforms. Tonight, we've got our first Innovation Accessibility Award that is recognizing a lot of teams that have worked hard to make games more accessible to those with disabilities. And I think one thing that all of us have thought this year is how can the gaming industry continue to grow and reach more people, as you said, Phil. Satya and you have talked about 3 billion people around the planet playing games, but of course all of us that love games want more people to experience them. And part of that, I think, is innovating and how to make games more accessible, but also I think it's diversifying the types of people that make games, that work in this industry, and have as many voices coming to be a part of it. And I wanted to give all of you a bit of a chance to talk about how you're thinking about how the obligation this industry has in this position as the most powerful form of entertainment, how to get more voices involved in the creation of games and also playing games. And maybe Laura, start with you on this. I know it's something you and everyone here is passionate about, but how can our industry do more there? Because I do think people watching this have a real passion for gaming, and want more people to be a part of it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And first, I'll just start by building on what you said. The year that we've had, the importance of the content and the experiences that we put out into the world is greater today than it's ever been. So we've been talking about the new technology, we've been talking about the immersion, we've been talking about how realistic things feel.
Dice che l'anno
Our
passato comunque è
ability
stato
to
un anno in
shape
cui hanno
society
è
and
stato
inform
sono state
culture
più
and to
praticamente ha
shape
prodotto
people's
un
points of view
sacco
about the world are significant. It's more significant than any form of media. So we
di
have
cose
a significant
nuove che ha dato
responsibility
la possibilità
to be
di
very responsible
giocare,
about that. And I think
di
that
accedere
from
anche
electronic
al
arts
gaming
perspective, it's something that is deep
in
in the
maniera
core values of
nuova.
our company. We also know and recognize that we have to show representation across leadership, across our teams, and that we have to welcome unique points of view, diverse thoughts, diverse opinions, And we have to create a culture and environment that welcomes and invites that. And then as far as the content goes, yes, we are incredibly excited and motivated to have the most diverse and broadest breadth of games that we possibly can, from The Sims to our sports games to our shooter games to Apex.
C'è
We're incredibly motivated
diversificazione,
to ensure that we
sostanzialmente.
have, a broad offering for people. And I would say that being intentional about that is really important. So we've incorporated things such as inclusion frameworks as we set out to determine characters and roles and their voices and are they the protagonists, are they antagonists in stories? It's incredibly important to be deliberate and intentional about how we create these stories, how we shape these experiences that players are going to have. Again, the really immersive worlds have a great degree of influence on how people see the world around them. So we have a big responsibility here.
Dice che hanno una grande responsabilità di
And
come
Lisa, any thoughts
attraverso
from your
loro le
end on sort of,
persone guardano e vedono il
you're one
mondo?
of the, top tech CEOs out there, and I think you've done such a great job, welcoming more and more people, even into AMD, just in terms of the engineers and other folks working on this. And I think that makes, just the technology and gaming industry stronger. When you think about, moving forward and inviting more people to be a part of, not even just gaming, but I think just, computing and technology, I'm curious to get your perspective on how you think about that.
Yeah, no, look, I think we all have a role to play. I think Laura's comments were right on in terms of the inclusiveness of every aspect of what we do. I think from our side, we're very focused on ensuring that, the folks who are developing the technologies are a diverse population. There are more and more women in engineering and in hardware and certainly in software as
Dice che
well.
la
And
sua
so I think
azienda
it's an
dove
opportunity to
lavora è
show
molto
really just
impegnata
how much we can really do.
nell'inclusione.
I think that's the beauty of our profession, right?
Inclusione
I mean,
penso
we can
intenda di
all
persone
see the fruits
diverse
of the labor and can see how much
e ci
one
sono
person can
molte
in fact
donne
make
che
a difference.
lavorano.
And so that's certainly what we try to do at AMD and really across the energy the industry. So I think there are more and more women in gaming. I think we can use even more, Laura, right? I think you would agree with that.
Ma che ci
And
sono molte più
part of it is
donne
just
che
making
lavorano in
it
questa industria che
fun and accessible
probabilmente
and
era sempre stata
something
legata
that
a un'idea
people feel
maschile,
comfortable about being
non
a part of.
maschilista, ma più interessata,
Yeah, I mean,
più
3 billion people sold, but there's still some more to get.
dagli
Right?
uomini che non dalle donne.
Yeah, I think gaming has this unique ability to bring people together through the gameplay itself, for the love of games, through things like the Game
Il
Awards.
videogame ha una
Um,
capacità di
and
aggregare persone che
I,
hanno
I
interessi
just think
comuni.
building empathy between groups by allowing more creators to tell their story and for you to feel that lived experience of creators everywhere, regardless of their physical ability, regardless of the gender, regardless of socioeconomic background. I just think you called it the most powerful entertainment medium, Jeff. And I think you're absolutely right. And that's really because you have agency when you get to play. And when we talk about 3 billion people playing Satya and I don't think that's our bound, right? That's just today. I think there's a real unique opportunity for us as an industry to make sure that all of those people feel included in the industry, find stories that are either first something that they connect with, but hopefully over time, stories and games that are maybe from perspectives that they haven't felt before, and they learn through that. And our communities have to be open and inclusive to support all of that. But that is the power of gaming. You call it the most powerful entertainment medium. I think you're absolutely right. And our job as industry leaders is to make sure we're shepherding this industry in the right way so that 10, 20, 30 years from now, it's not 3 billion people, it's 5 billion, 6 billion people playing. And that people find leaders and stories from that perspectives where they can learn more. I think that's just such a great thing for us to aspire to.
Indeed.
Here. I would agree with you on that. And it's, it's been great to have all of you guys here today. Thank you for all your support and guidance on the Game Awards. You've all been there since we started back in 2014, and tonight is going to be a different show, but I think going to be hopefully exciting and a rallying moment for all of us that love games, and to all of you guys and your teams that have done so much this year on behalf of everyone watching the show that enjoys games. Thanks to all of you for coming through in what I know was not the easiest year in 2020.
Congrats on the
Thanks,
show,
Jeff.
Jeff. I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah, have a great show.
Yes,
Awesome.
thank you.
All
And
right.
thank you for always helping us celebrate our industry. You're an amazing leader that way.
Well, thank you. You guys are far too kind, and we'll have a great night. The Game Awards is coming up. Thanks to Lisa, Laura, and Phil for joining us for this special panel, and hope to see you guys in person in 2021. Let's hope.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Questo era il pre-show, quindi il panel.